I think those are anagrams of earth, the word earth.
Right, okay.
Earth, fire, air, and water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And Jim, I had a question on that. Following media art for a long time, fonts, words that show up visually, which is say, or some kind of font, it's been very, very hard to put it in art, right? If you think of some of the Cubist work, they put in a few words, and if you think of modern, even music videos when I was doing them, it's almost folly when you try and put in too many words, it just turns to mush. And yet they have meaning, so you want to be able to read it, but then you're using it decoratively. So I've seen it, a lot of people avoid it, put it that way, or it hasn't worked. There was a very famous Prince video that's amazing, where he gets out of a car and these words are spilling out, and it was, I know the person who did it took years to try and get it right, and it's really tricky. So with this notion of these brushes, I tend to think they're almost like hoses because there's stuff coming out of them. How do you deal with just this notion of too many words? If words are just on top of other words, they're really just letter decorations that are just, yet. So there's this thing about making them readable, but still, again, even with CNN, people put words on backgrounds and send them across just because they mend into the background, and it just becomes a mess. So you seem to have solved that with your work in a dynamic way. So how do you do that where it's not too? Are you just careful to splatter a little and pull back and kind of, or is that really a little bit more in the way it works?
Well, for one thing, I have my wife, who was a student of yours.
Too many words.
And she was actually quite helpful in that regard, actually, in that, that's a problem, of course. You just get word salad, or you get something that isn't readable at all, because the words aren't well defined visually. You can't distinguish one from the other. And that was actually really helpful in allowing me to see that part of the job here comes from the fact that you're always introducing noise, because these brushes are, as you say, sort of like hoses, and they're noisy in the sense that noise is an obliteration of signal. So part of the job is to keep the hose going, but to somehow retrieve and create and manufacture at the same time signal. So in terms of signal and noise, it's a challenge to create definition of the words, of the individual words, create definition of the individual images. And so, like, for instance, with the Bissett stuff, I took these 300 poems of Bill's, and I worked with each of them in Photoshop, haloing the text, for instance, creating PNG versions of the poems where, a PNG is an image that has transparent parts. So I'd take a Bill poem and I'd delete the background, but before I deleted it, I would halo the text. You see, these texts have space around the words, space around the letters. So I would create these halos, and then I'd delete the background. So not all the background, and so that was part of the job of creating signal and definition, and yet letting the hose go all the same. And so it was a variety of techniques like that to salvage or manufacture signal from quite a noisy process.